Welcome to Thoughts for Thursday. If you believe in a fearless, free, and fulfilled life, this is the place to be. I am Katie Bach, your host, and today we are going to talk about 4 tips to discovering who you are. So who are you? Do you ever ask yourself that question? Who are you? We can define ourselves in so many different ways, but who are you really? What are you passionate about? What feels good for you? What doesn't feel good for you? The world really tells us so much of how we are supposed to be, and everybody has an opinion, family, friends, people we don't even know. And society says if you're this age or that age, or if you do this or that, you've got to be this way. And so how do you really discover who you are? What makes you happy? What makes you feel good? How do you discover that? For a long time, I didn't really know who I was. What did I like doing? I never took the time to really get to know myself. And it's so important because when you get to know who you are, when you trust yourself, you open up this whole world of living the way you want to live, of being fulfilled in life, of stepping out of some of the fear that you're feeling because you know that you're being true to yourself, because you really know who you are. It's really powerful to know who you are. And so that's why I wanted to talk about this today, because I know that struggle. And I know what it feels like when you figure out who you are and how amazing it feels. So, the first tip to discovering who you are is to spend alone time with yourself. And maybe you're somebody that doesn't like to be alone, and I get that, I understand that. But spending alone time with yourself really helps you to get to know who you are without the judgments and opinions of the outside world. You have a unique vibration. You have a truth inside of you, and you are a beautiful soul. And when we get tied up in what everybody else says we should or shouldn't be, it's hard to really get to know who you truly are, because we're tied up in these judgments, in these boxes that we've been placed on by, society and by what the world says and what other people say we should or shouldn't be. And spending alone time with yourself helps you to step out of those boxes and really kind of sift through what feels good for you, what doesn't feel good for you. Maybe you thought you enjoyed something, and then when you really sit back and you consider it, you realize you don't really enjoy it that much and it's not really serving you. You are who you are, and you get to define who you are. Not your best friend, not your family members, not your boss, not the world. You get to define who you are. And so when you spend alone time with yourself, you not only get to know who you are, but you begin to trust yourself. And so even though alone time with you may seem scary, you will absolutely benefit from spending alone time with yourself. And that doesn't mean you sit in silence with yourself. You could take a bath by yourself. You could go for a walk by yourself. You could journal, just doing things by yourself without the conditioning of the outside world. A great book to read that kind of talks about the conditioning of the world that gets placed on you from childhood is The 4 Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. Great book. Spend alone time with yourself and read it. It may open up that inner knowing within you to help you understand yourself better. So, first tip, spend alone time with yourself. At least once a week. And don't just do it when you're trying to discover who you are. Do it often, because we're always changing, we're always evolving. That means You always want to check in with yourself and see how you are feeling. See who you are today in this moment. So spend alone time with yourself. Tip number 2, let go of other people's opinions. And that's easier said than done. I'm well aware. I am well aware. Believe me, I, for a long time, was a people pleaser. That means doing what others wanted because I wanted to make everyone happy, right? And that wasn't serving me. That wasn't allowing me to be who I am and even discovering who I was. And so if you slowly let go of the opinions and judgments of others, of the world, it allows you to come into that space of just being who you are, of acceptance, which is kind of ties into tip number 3. But when you are worried about what everyone else thinks, what everyone else's opinion is, that means you're not trusting yourself and your intuition, your inner knowing. You know what you need more than anyone else. Bottom line, you know. It's about trusting yourself. It's about knowing who you are. So as you get to know who you are, as you spend that alone time with yourself, it becomes easier to let go of other people's opinions and judgments because you know who you are, right? So discovering who you are requires you to let go of what other people think of you, other people's opinions of what you should and shouldn't be doing, and really discovering what you want to be doing, what you need. And that is really, truly powerful. And I'm not saying it's easy, and I'm not saying it's not a process. It's definitely a process. So step by step, giving yourself that space to let go of what other people think and standing strongly in who you are. Trusting in who you want to be. What feels good for you, your intuition as it talks to you. Because you know you better than anyone else. You just have to create that space to really discover who you are, what you want, and what you need. So, tip number 1, spend alone time with yourself. Tip number 2, let go of what other people say you should be. Let go of their opinions, their judgments, and listen to yourself. Listen to your body, your intuition, and let that guide you. You are trustworthy. Number 3, acceptance. Unconditional acceptance. As you are discovering who you are, you have to accept who you've been in the past. And especially if you've never really journeyed to discover who you truly are, as you begin to do it, it's going to be a little rocky. You have to accept all that you've been through and accept that that doesn't define you. It was an experience that you learned from, but it doesn't define who you are. Remember, you get to define who you are. Not your past experiences, not mistakes you've made, not, choices you've made in the past that didn't turn out as you had hoped. You define you. Everything, every experience, every feeling, every person that's been in your life, you have learned from. Good, bad, in between, you have learned and you have grown from that. So as you stand in acceptance for all that you've been, all that you've experienced, it allows you to open up to be who you are today. There are no conditions here. You can be whoever you want to be, whoever your soul guides you to be. Only you block yourself. So tip number 3, unconditional acceptance for what you've been through, for who you've been, for who you're becoming, for who you are. As you journey to discover who you are, you've got to stand in that acceptance so that whatever comes up within you, you can see and be with that. And you can choose if it serves you or if it doesn't. When you're in the state of judgment, you're only going to block certain things about yourself. So we've got to come into that acceptance. So way number 1, alone time with yourself. Tip number 2, let go of those judgments and opinions of others. Way number 3, unconditional acceptance for yourself, for where you've been, for what you've experienced. Unconditional acceptance. And number 4, tip number 4 is to be willing to flow. Be willing to flow with yourself. You may journey to discover who you are, and you discover who you are today, and then in 2 months or a year from now, you're a totally different person. And that's okay. You are always evolving. You are always transforming. And that's why it's so important to check in with yourself, to spend that alone time with yourself, because that gives you the space to really breathe and know who you are as you are transforming, as you are changing. So you've got to be willing to flow. We can't be stuck in the box. You discover who you are and then you're in this box, or you think you know who you are and you're in this box. But you're not willing to go outside of the box, to expand outside of the box. And then that's going to block you from really being yourself and discovering who you are and creating that life that feels good for you. So you have to be willing to flow. Tip number 1, spend alone time with yourself. Number 2, let go of the judgments of others, opinions of others. 3, unconditional acceptance for yourself. And 4, be willing to flow. Be willing to flow. Be open to you, right? And so these tips and these tools to discovering who you are really things that you want to be doing all the time. Yes, take a journey to discover who you are, especially if you haven't done it yet. But after you do the big journey of discovering who you are, do little journeys. Every so often. It could be once a week, it could be once a month, it could be whenever you feel you need to tap in and discover who you are today. But keep connecting to yourself. The biggest thing is you define who you are. And the only way you can define yourself in a way that feels good for you, that allows you to live the life you want to live, a life that feels good, is by discovering who you are today. Stepping out of the box of yesterday and stepping into who you are today. So, that's all I got for you today. Your challenge this week is to create space for yourself. Catch the video from the other day. It's breathing and yoga to create a bubble for you to kind of discover who you are. So catch that video, create that space for yourself, and then give yourself some alone time. Work through letting go of those judgments and opinions of others. Work towards unconditional acceptance. And always be willing to flow. Be willing to flow with who you are. You know your challenge. You have got this. Get out there and discover who you are. And if you want some assistance with that, with creating space, check out the Aligned Life membership. It's a great way to get into a regular yoga practice, meditation practice, and really just creating that space for yourself to open your mind and open your heart to live life in your way. So you have a wonderful day. Lots of love to you, and I will see you soon.